Hello and welcome to Ask George. After the first test in Multan, England have won by an innings and 47 runs. And I'm joined by our chief correspondent, George Dobell. I'm Nick Howson. George phoning in from Multan. Were you surprised how quickly it took yesterday? How do you reflect now, a day or so out from the end of that game and the way it all came together quite quickly over those sort of last two sessions?
Well, we should explain firstly that we couldn't record yesterday. I think there was a demonstration in Multan, a PTI party, which is the Imran Khan party, and maybe it's connected that the internet didn't work very well. But anyway, it does work now, and so
It
apologies
will
for the
not stop
delay in
us.
doing this. No, can't stop us. Although, you know, if there's a jail threat,
Yeah.
we'll stop.
Yeah. I mean,
I
they
thought
could
that
stop us. I mean, it is true. They could stop us if they really want.
I I actually thought Pakistan put up a decent fight on day five, but what it probably showed was how flat the pitch still was. And it probably showed how well England did on day four, where they saw a window of opportunity. They saw that Pakistan were tired and dispirited, and they went for the throat. And there was that little spell as well where they just got a little bit of reverse and Jack Leach getting a little bit of spin, but nothing dramatic. And they took the opportunity. A lot of it was about physical tiredness, I think, wasn't it? And mental disintegration, and England were really, really good in that spirit. Obviously, it's set up by that huge batting effort, but I thought the bowlers did really, really well, and hugely encouraging performances by several of them, not least Bryden Carson, Jack Leach, who I thought did really, really well.
Well, let's get on to some questions then that have been building up over the last day or so. So we're a bit delayed on this, but some good ones come in. Firstly, let's start with Nishan Sapkota, who asks simply, where does this Bazball win rank?
Well, it feels to me like it's right up there. I guess the caveat would be about Pakistan.
Hmm.
But there have been flat wickets before and there have been modest opposition before. This is a result. Well, they have done things that have never been done. To concede 550 and win by an innings. It's unheard of, really, isn't it? And to score 800 so fast. Those are extraordinary efforts. I think it's in my piece today. If you want to think about how different things are, think what would have happened had Dom Sibley and Rory Burns been open the batting for England. Now, I'm big fans of those guys. They're very good, and in certain circumstances, they no doubt still do a very good job for England. But they couldn't have done this job, could they? They couldn't have
No.
done this job. And so, for the whole of England's batting to be tailored to scoring quickly and aggressively, for the bowlers to have, I don't know, the pace, the ability to reverse, the various skills they had. Everything came together in a way that is quite unusual. So I think it's right up there with Rawalpindi. The other ones, I mean, Hyderabad was an extraordinary fourth innings heist, if you like, against a better side. And actually, Nottingham against New Zealand and even Edgbaston against India were quite good. But this could have been a shocking game. I still don't think it was a great wicket. And I think in another era it would have been a terribly boring draw. So I think of all the examples you can think of England saving Test cricket and all those hyperbolic, if that's a word, statements,
Yeah.
they definitely saved this Test with the way they played. They really did.
Yeah. I think it's like if there's one thing you can say, I don't know whether we even need to have the conversation about like best Bazball wins and all that kind of thing. But if there's one thing that this does thing, it's that they have kind of normalised. They've kind of normalised England teams winning away from home against Pakistan, which is no mean feat. They kind of there's four in a row now. I mean
Four in a row. It's a
it's
good point.
completely unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, to remind people, before that 2022 tour, they'd won two Tests in Pakistan in
Yeah.
history. So there are all sorts of things that have happened in the last few years, like winning 3-0 in Sri Lanka, I think in 2019, was it? That are extraordinary and would have felt unheard of. I think you have to be honest, though, and say there is a decline in the standard of most global sides, I'm afraid.
Mm, yeah.
But even so, let's not, caveat everything. They have done brilliantly. And absolutely, it's fair to recognise that Pakistan's a bit of a shambles. Of course it is. But whatever. In the whole history of Test cricket, most times this game would have been drawn, and it would
Yeah.
have been really, really dull had it been. So they made what could have been a tricky week or two in Multan for some of us a really memorable and enjoyable one.
Mm.
That's worth something. And
Less,
also, by
less.
the way, just on a level, I thought there were some really encouraging performances. You know, we know that England now are aiming towards the challenges in 2025. India, different challenges, and England probably better equipped for playing in England, but obviously playing in Australia is on their mind. And I think Bryden Carr's demonstrated quite a lot of the qualities that England are looking for. He can bowl pretty quick. You know, he got into the 90s on a flat wicket. He discomforted batters with the short ball, despite it being a flat wicket. And he bowled with reverse. And he showed some consistency, some control. So I thought there was an awful lot to like about Bryden Carr's debut.
And you can read that piece as part of our online digital subscription service that George has written. That's gone up today, as well as all his other coverage from the remainder of the Test match, and indeed the remainder of the tour. There is a £1 sign-up offer
A
currently open.
£1. I'll tell you
Incredible.
something. I mean, apparently there's a black market operating here, and it's £1 for a beer.
I did think you were going to say black market of subscription codes there for a second, and you were going to
No,
start. You're going
no,
to
but yeah,
start
a beer
under.
doesn't last a beer doesn't last a month, eh? Not in my
Absolutely.
hands.
I mean, genuinely, I can't. I was trying to think of this before we came on. What can you actually get for £1 anymore? Apart
You
from
can get a
like,
month's subscription to
you
the
can get a
to
month's subscription. I genuinely think it's got to be one of the best value things on the market. We are doing
this is
this.
outrageous advertising.
The sales team
This
are
is
at this point.
uh,
They're opening the bottle shop. They are loving. They are loving our work here.
delicious Twinings mint tea. Mmm.
Because
Anyway,
that should
I haven't
guarantee a few
partaken, by the
boxes.
way. I haven't been indulged in the black market beers. But I tell you, they're very healthy. Every day they give me apples. Lots, a lot. Where are they? If I go that way, they tell me these are oranges. Are they? They tell me they're oranges. I mean,
We've morphed into a
they might
different
be. I
show
thought they
here.
were limes, but they tell me they're oranges. I haven't had one yet.
Okay. Should we move on?
Oh,
I
we
don't know
probably should.
why.
I'm just wittering inanely.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, this will all make the edit. Occidental tourists asked. Let's talk about cricket. Occidental tourists asked, assuming Stokes is fit to bat in the second test, is Ollie Pope the one to miss out?
Yeah, he is. I mean, there are other ways of doing it, of course. You could, well, Ben Duckett's thumb could be a problem, but I'm told it isn't. And, you know, I know that one or two of my colleagues, or one of my colleagues, thinks they're going to drop Sher Bashir. That would be insane, I think. I mean, you don't want to, if you scored 800, you don't need to strengthen the batting. So I think what they'll probably do is give Stokes another week, you know. But we'll see. So I don't think he'll play, but I don't know. We'll go and watch training tomorrow, and I'll update you. But he would normally speak to us tomorrow on Sunday, and he isn't. And he isn't presumably because he's not sure whether he's playing. So he's not doing the early captain's press conference, if you like, which he just does with the English written media. So it's a good problem to have, but I think that yes, I mean go through it. You probably Stokes could open. But do you want to disrupt that opening pair? Probably you don't, do you?
No.
You're not letting Root or Brook miss out, are you? Smith's keeping. Stokes could potentially play in front instead of one of the bowlers, but you would want him to then carry a proper workload as a bowler, and it doesn't look like he'd be ready to bowl the overs that Wokes or Carse or indeed Atkinson did. So realistically, you're playing him as a batter who bowls a bit. And yeah, it's Pope looks the most precarious. I know he was captain. I know he scored what 3 Test centuries this year. I think two tests ago. But I think he would be the most precarious, and that would be a very very interesting selection dilemma for them.
Yeah, so I guess the three options really are dropping Ollie Pope and Stokes batting either at three or at six, or you just move everyone up. Bashir, which I think is an option rather than one I would necessarily go for. I think you really have to take into account how beneficial not his overs were in terms of wickets and runs conceded, because clearly that those numbers weren't in a great place, but just taking giving the seamers a bit of time. And then it's whether Stokes can bowl. Can Stokes bowl? Could he replace, say, Bryden Cass, say Chris Wokes? I don't know. I guess those are the three legitimate options. We're ruling out Stokes bowling, aren't we?
Well, we're not completely ruling him out bowling. He said that they said that he would need a week of bowling, and he started last Tuesday. So he potentially could be ready for this Tuesday, which is the first day of the second test. So, but there's bowling, and there's bowling the overs required to replace the three seamers. They got through quite a lot of overs.
Mm.
They might want to refresh the tack anyway and bring in Potts. I don't know. Let's see how they are. They all look pretty weary, of course, and their feet looked awful. Bryden Cass had blisters all over himself. That's something they might want to look at. But why would you want to risk Ben Stokes when it's not necessary? So I think that you take a cautious approach with him. He can play as a batter, and I think he'd be an asset. I, I think it would be, also with Shoaib. I mean, we knew that he was a project. When they picked him when he was 19. I'm not sure that now would be the time to interrupt that prospect. You want him to bowl lots of overs. This is the sort of game that he probably needs to play if you're looking to the future. And he had a bad game, but so did Ollie Pope. I mean, people do have bad games. You don't necessarily drop them all the time. And you would think this is very much two spin conditions. There are other options in the squad, of course, but I would think that Pope and Stokes is the selection decision they have to make, but it'll be largely made around fitness.
Yeah, with Bashir, it's like when he's did so well in India and stuff, and obviously he was England's first choice spinner, and he does well, and people go, "Wow, he's only played less than 20 first class games." I think the first test was 21st or something like that. I think
I
first
think
class
so, yeah.
game. That should be the same reaction if he doesn't do as well.
Yes, yes, this was bound to happen. So I think they need to bear with him a bit and get around him, as they would say, and make him feel part of it for the long term. I don't think this would be the time to be changing it, and I think it would be such a fudge to drop a bowler because you don't want to drop the batter that you've made standing captain.
On the subject of spin, Tom Vickers asks an interesting question. On a dead pitch, Jack Leach has taken the same number of wickets as Pakistan could muster. Is he being vastly underrated? I mean, he's regularly bowling England to victories in the subcontinent now. He's absolutely their go-to in the second innings or the determining innings of games, whether it be in India or Sri Lanka or Pakistan now. Like, how do you feel about the Leach thing? Because it felt like his international career was at a little bit of a crossroads, maybe after coming out
Well,
of
I
that
think the
India
thing
stint.
with Jack is that he's suffered from injury and illness, and
Yeah,
that's interrupted his career. Now, when the time comes for him to speak about that openly and frankly, I think people will be amazed at what he's gone through.
yeah.
And I think that one, I don't know all the details, and two, it's none of my business. I wouldn't want to overshare, but I think that he's been incredibly resilient. But let's just go through a few things that off the top of my head. He didn't get signed up at the time that, say, Joss Butler did, from Somerset Academy to the Somerset squad. He had to go and get a job at a supermarket. Okay, setback number one. Starts bowling in county cricket. Obviously, the pitches were helpful. Gets on the brink of England recognition, and someone decides that his action is illegal, which surprised everybody, I think. So he has to remodel his action. That derails careers all the time, all the time. So he's remodeled his action and come back just as good, if not better than ever. He got, among other things, sepsis in New Zealand. I mean, you don't want to get sepsis. People die of sepsis all the time. And then he got a stress fracture at the back. Again, these things end careers all the time. So I've given you four examples there of things that could have ended his career. and yet he keeps coming back. And he doesn't look like, the most resilient fella in the world, possibly, but he is. He's a tough old character, and we've seen him murdered by Australia and India at times, and he keeps coming back. So I have a huge amount of respect for him. He's not Derek Underwood, obviously. He doesn't turn it masses. He doesn't bowl that many magic balls or anything like that. But he's reliable. He's full of character. He's improved his batting and his fielding. I think he's a very good cricketer. I think he's a. So I don't think he's particularly underrated. I hope that's not. Well, I don't think there's been faint praise there at all. I think I've been full of praise. I hope, but he has been ill, and even in India, that injury, which was a bruise, I think, caused by diving in the field, I believe that the delay in recovery would be caused by the long-term health issues. But again, this is maybe not even appropriate to talk about. So he's got this stuff he's been battling against. But I think that the England squad are full of respect and admiration, and I think England supporters are. He's for a start always going to have a part in England history for the Headingley. But actually, he was part of sides that won very heavily in Sri Lanka and West Indies. And so he's been part of a lot of good things in English cricket. His ceiling's probably not as high as Shoaib Bashir. I don't think it is as a bowler. I don't think, I don't think his ceiling's as high. But right now, he is a more consistent bowler, and this is a tour where you want to play two spinners. So this isn't a bad thing. This isn't a problem. This is a good thing to have two spinners vying for selection. And so I don't think Jack Leach is underrated. I don't. I think he's hugely rated and respected. But you have to understand that he hasn't always been dropped or left out. He's been ill or injured, and other people have taken opportunities, and that's what happens.
Yeah, I'll throw two things into that. That was really nice. I think one is that um, he also, that thing is also suffer from Crohn's disease, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
that meant that while COVID was a factor, he was actually declared vulnerable, um, and was among the first to get to be, so therefore among the first to be offered a vaccine. I mean, obviously, I think we're all aware of sort of family members being in that position and people we know being in that position, but such a difficult one when your career requires you to kind of be out there. Um, and yeah, with everything else that you mentioned as well, like, it is remarkable. One thing I would say is that if there's one person that doesn't mind, if there is a world of where Jack Leach is underrated, and perhaps Tom was referring to, the question was referring to, sort of a more global context, which may well be right. The one person that won't be worried about that is Jack Leach. And I'll tell a story from that Headingley test. From after that Headingley test, I was leaving the ground at the same time as him, after that ridiculous day. Let's be honest. In 2019, and there were a few stragglers who were still sort of soaking up the dying embers of the day, who had obviously been there since, well, as we all had been since the first ball, and they were still there into the sort of the early evening. And myself and Jack were leaving at the same time, and they caught sight of him, and obviously sort of wanted their picture and wanted their moment with their sort of England's cult hero of the day, so to speak. And he starts running away. Doesn't want anything, he completely sort of, I guess, sort of a little bit uncomfortable. I think eventually he did go and do his obligations as far as photos and stuff concerned, but he initially runs away and hides because I don't
Well,
think he
that
minds.
is interesting because he didn't do media after the game because we asked to speak to him. And I don't think there's any. I don't think that's him being a rock star. I don't think that's him being arrogant or anything at all. I think he one would be a bit anxious and be happy to let his figures do the talking, and two, he's in this difficult situation where I've no doubt he wishes Shoaib Bashir well on a level. I'm sure he does. But at the same time, it is competitive, and they are at some stage going to be competing for one spot, maybe next summer, maybe next winter, and that's awkward. It's not. It's not. Doesn't make them horrible people. You know what I mean? It's just a bit awkward, and if you're really really tired, you maybe don't have the mental dexterity to deal with those sorts of situations. So I get that, but I think it possibly is a bit of an insight into that dynamic. But that's one of the many reasons why I wouldn't change the bowling attack at the moment. Play both of them. Well, I might change the seamers if they need it, but let them both bowl. It's useful to have the ball spinning both ways anyway, and also let the selectors make a decision on who's best based on them both bowling in tandem. I think that might be a useful thing. He's had a, a modest test or two. I don't think he was great in Manchester either, actually. But that's okay. It's going to happen. I still think there's a lot to like, and he is one for the long term. He's 21 in a day or two, isn't he? He's terribly young, so I think there's still a lot to like.
Let's touch on Pakistan very quickly, just to sign off. If you were trying to secure a home win for a team with a misfiring batting lineup, wouldn't a pitch that favours your bowlers increase your chances of victory? That's a question from Danny.
Well, it might. I mean, I do think that you couldn't probably have predicted what was going to happen here. Look, I think I wrote on the first day Pakistan were nowhere near because it looked. I don't know what the score was, but it's 350 for three or something, and it was nowhere near an
397.
impregnable score. I think that's what I wrote. I thought that anything over 450 begins to get tricky, but bear in mind the previous test they had scored 450 and lost as well, Pakistan. So what we used to think of as big first innings scores, on these wickets and the way modern cricket's played, you've got to recalibrate a bit. But 550, crikey, it's never a small score, is it? And we were joking, come on England, just come out and score a quick 700. Sounds easy, but they actually did it, and then some. So there was quite a lot that went right for England. So I think the logic of having a flat wicket, allowing their batters to find some form and hoping their bowlers' skill would bear fruit wasn't completely unreasonable. As it happened, their leg spinner wasn't very well and didn't bowl very well. One of their seamers didn't look great, and England batted very well. I thought two of their seamers bowled really, really well. So I don't think it was a terribly unreasonable tactic. But yeah, I think let's get back to basics. Was it a good wicket in terms of a balance between bat and ball? Was it a wicket that should have created entertaining cricket? And the answer is probably no. We got real lucky with the game we had. So I think that they probably should think about that. But I don't know how you change it. I mean, it's only three strips along the square to the pitch they use in this week. So I don't see how it could be wildly different, I'm afraid. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, at this stage, what are you going to do? You can water it all you like. It's hot as hell. It's going to have disappeared in seconds. So I don't exactly know what you do.
Yeah, I think what seems to come across, at least from the sort of the discourse around the team, and this came out a little bit in the post-match, very tense post-match interview between Ramiz Raja and Shan Masood, where you've got the former sort of PCB guy, come commentator, come sort of a hero, I guess, a little bit. Again,
Beautiful
talking
hair.
to the captain who isn't his guy, wasn't his guy, I guess, when he was there. He was full Babar Azam during his tenure. This tense exchange really about what is Pakistan's plan, like what's the strategy. I think that's as mystifying, I think, to observers there as anything. That there isn't really an idea of like what sort of pitches they want to play on, what sort of how they want to kind of build a 5-day game, a structure or framework of how they're going to play their cricket, and then after that, therefore, it's a bit of a mess, and you get maybe pitches like this and matches like this where they score 550
Yeah,
and
I
don't
don't
know
know.
how to
Were the
win.
pitches so different when Ramiz was in charge? I'm not
I,
sure I
d- I,
remember
don't,
that.
I don't know. I couldn't speak to
Well,
the
I don't think they were,
the
to be honest.
plan
I don't
necessarily.
think they were. I mean, I used to work with Ramiz, and yeah, one of the things that stuck out about him is that we would get on long haul flights, and I would get off looking as if I'd slept in a skip, and he would get off looking magnificent. Every hair beautiful, beautifully dressed, smelling wonderful. And it was like, what? I mean, we went different directions on the plane most of the time. He would go left, I would go right,
Yes.
obviously. But even so, there was anyway. I think it's very easy to criticise. And I've respect for Ramiz because he tried to actually do the job. And the problem was he was moved on before making the changes that he might have wanted to. But then he probably did the same to Wazim Khan in turn. There's been many years of a lack of investment in facilities. Okay, and I suspect that you have to dig up wickets and relay them with different soils, different clay content. You've got to get a bit more sophisticated. This is largely what pitches in Pakistan have been like, isn't it? There've been a lot of runs scored in Pakistan, a lot of very flat wickets over the years. Um, yeah, I think that is an issue. I don't think it creates particularly attractive Test cricket. In the past, they've always said it was part of the reason that it created the incredible bowling attacks. That bowlers have to find a way, and that's why you got the ingenuity with reverse or extreme pace or whatever. Well, we're not seeing masses of that. There are two bowlers opening the bowling in this game who have clearly lost a bit of pace. They're still good bowlers, but they're not achieving the speeds they had in the past. But ask yourself, if you were Shaheen Afridi and you were bowling on that, why would you? Why would you keep doing it? Why would you risk your future when you could be making money just playing T20? Why wouldn't you do what Amir has done up to the point anyway? You're just flogging bowlers on those sorts of surfaces. And I think they're going to have a problem with people leaving Pakistan because they've also got a rule about only allowing them to play 3 franchise competitions a year and not giving them NOCs. But you can't necessarily stop them moving to Europe or whatever. So I think that would be a problem. So they've got to take a long-term view and really get down to these difficult decisions. But it's such a political environment, and the political environment changes radically quite often. Was it the last time? I mean, how long is it since Imran was in charge and had a good relationship with the board and all the rest of it? And now Imran's in prison, and it's a completely different climate and emphasis. So there needs to be some stability, and that probably extends beyond cricket. There has to be a long-term vision as well. The years of lack of investment is really, really showing. Funnily enough, we went today. It's a weird thing because we have. I've just been playing cricket in the yard. We're not allowed out, but there's a hotel yard which is surrounded by walls and barbed wire and armed officers. And I've just been playing cricket in the yard with the commandos. Anyway, earlier they took us to see the old Test ground. There was only one test there, the one where Sylvester Clarke threw a brick into the crowd. I mean, he had a brick, which presumably came from the crowd, to be fair to him. I don't suppose he went out to bowl with a brick.
Unlikely.
But so anyway, and there was all sorts of trouble. I think it was rained off, but I don't know what year that was, probably 1980. And it was sad. It was sad to see what a desolate place it is now. I mean, you wouldn't be hosting any cricket there. And they've been on the outside of international cricket and touring for quite a long time, and they still haven't recovered from that. So the ICC, World Cricket needs to support Pakistan right now, and Pakistan needs to be well run right now. But I still think there's a lot of talent here. I don't think it's the same situation as West Indies. I mean, there's still talent there too, but I think that it almost feels like the board needs to get out of cricket's way rather than the board needing to help. But the facilities do need improving.